Are you done with your video? Okay. Distinguished guests, dear friends, good morning. Welcome. Welcome to the Youth Focused Mental Health Fair, a collaborative effort from Compassionate San Diego Youth Council, Compassionate Arts, and Post for Peace and Justice. I am Rose Bowie, lead for Compassionate San Diego. Compassionate San Diego, a county and communities initiative, is a young entity of grassroots efforts formed 10 months ago in March 2020. Its goal is to foster compassion to all layers of the community. Its parent organizations are Compassionate California and the Charter for Compassion. Together with Kira Carrillo-Kosser, a renowned artist and peace builder, we decided to start by focusing on our young people. Interviews were done in young persons 13 to 26, and we rapidly learned from Madison Ross and others in the group that mental health was their current main concern. I sincerely invite you to enjoy the genuine efforts of these young minds to set up with their adult allies the following 4 discussions: coping with anxiety and worries, overcoming depression and hopelessness, diversity, inclusiveness, equity, and their effects on mental health, and understanding autism. At this time, Dr. Emily Scher will give some helpful tips for a smooth experience, and Kira Kosser will give further details and present the speakers. Emily.
Thank you, Rose, and good morning to everyone. Welcome to this very special event hosted by Compassionate San Diego. My name is Emily Schell, and I am the Executive Director of the California Global Education Project at the University of San Diego. We are very proud to be a strong partner for Compassionate San Diego, and so excited about working with these youth ambassadors from across our county. We have over 100 participants who registered for this event. And so as your Zoom facilitator, I just want to remind everyone that as we get started, if you would please keep your microphone on mute unless you are one of the speakers. And also, as we get started, we're going to invite you to turn off your camera so that we can focus in on the presenters, the panelists for each of our sessions. We highly encourage the use of the chat room. We'd love to hear your comments, your questions, your responses to what you're hearing or what you're reading in the chat room. And also remind you that we are a compassionate community, and so we endeavor to create a safe space for nurturing and growth and inquiry and sharing. So please keep that in mind as you make your comments and as you read comments and respond to comments. At the end of this session at 1:30, we will stay on, the panelists will stay on for a few minutes if there are additional questions or if you want to come off of mute and come on camera. But then we'll take a break between this session and the next session, which will start promptly at 1:30. So thank you for being here, and I'm turning it over to Kira.
Hello, everybody. So glad to see you. Really wonderful day. We've worked 6 months on this. So proud of our youth ambassadors. Really and truly feel that you have done a major step in your life, I think. Helping other people and having the courage to speak out like you all are is really inspiring to us as adults. How about that? And so I just wanted to just quickly say, a little bit about how we started this project. Madison Ross is one of my granddaughters, and she had done a paper for school suggesting that youth mental health was a big deal, and that she wanted a fair at the school. And because of COVID, we couldn't do a physical fair, so we started meeting online, and she interviewed youth. And over again, Rose's grandchildren are also part of this project, and many others. And we found and we heard from you, the youth, that mental health was a really big issue. So I welcome everybody for the courage and the compassion to do this project. I'm going to show a little 1-minute video, and then Jordan can you wave, Jordan? Jordan is going to, she's now taking over the leadership for the youth ambassadors, and Madison is going to be helping her, and Jordan will be introducing people. So I'm going to share my screen. Take it away, Jordan.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to our virtual mental health fair today. We have 2 panels today, coping with anxiety and worries, and our next one was overcoming depression and helplessness. So our 2 youth ambassadors for coping with anxiety and worries is Danny Cervantes and Jalen Bowie. Danny Cervantes is a visual and performance artist. She enjoys the outdoors, and she is an educator and also a National Coca-Cola scholar. She's currently a 4th year at the University of California, Berkeley, majoring in ethnic studies and theater and performance studies. The fundamental worries of art, truth, justice, and beauty are at the core of Danny's personal and professional ventures throughout multiple mediums. She grew up in rural Greenfield, California, and has a profound connection to nature, and the spiritual essence are the animating forces that inspire her creative work. Let's see. And talking about Jalen Bowie, he's a student at Scripps Ranch High School. He enjoys playing badminton, games, cooking, and playing the piano. He started to play the piano in 2nd grade and has continued to do this throughout his life. He's currently been researching mental health and anxiety issues with Danny and has produced a short collaborative PowerPoint presentation, which we will see shortly. A quote from Jalen about wanting to be a compassionate San Diego youth ambassador includes, "He loves helping other people to make the world a better place overall. And compassion is important to him because he feels like compassion brings people together and circulates love throughout the world." The adult ally for this presentation is Dr. Janina Scarlett. She is a licensed clinical psychologist, author, and a full-time Geek. She is a Ukrainian-born refugee. She survived the Chernobyl radiation and persecution. She immigrated to the United States at the age of 12 with her family, and later, inspired by the X-Men, developed superhero therapy to help patients with anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Dr. Scarlett is the recipient of the Eleanor Roosevelt Human Rights Award by the United Nations Association for her work on superhero therapy. She has been featured on Yahoo, BBC, NPR, Sunday Times, New York Times, and she currently works for the Center of Stress and Anxiety Management in San Diego. And we have our compassionate lead artist on this mental health post is London Rose Ross. She has been acting, dancing, singing since she was very little and loves many art forms. She studied theater and classes at Broadway, Vista, New Village Arts in Carlsbad, and at the YMCA. She is 13 years old and is currently in middle school at San Diego County. And then I believe Faye will be introducing our other compassionate arts artist, Kira. Is Faye on?
Oh,
She's,
yes. I'm sorry. I was under the impression that you were going to introduce on this call, so I was not aware. But I would just love to say off the top that Kira Corser is the co-founder of Compassionate Arts in Action, along with myself, Post for Peace and Justice, a co-founder, and also is the co-founder. Yes, and she has a post back there, and the co-founder of or co-lead with the Compassionate San Diego, and on the leadership team with Compassionate California. She's also worked for PBS and has been a journalist, awarded a photographer, and has been doing so much work in the industry, advocating for social justice, for women's rights, and for youth and Black Lives Matter. And I'm just so happy to be in partnership and be mentored by Kira Corser. Thank you so much for all that you're doing with the community. And I love your work and the legacy that you're building. Thank you.
thank you, Faye. Faye is also known as Faye Love. And I just wanted to let all of you know that after the youth ambassadors and Janina talk, I'm going to show a short video that honors the work of the lead artist, London Ross, and others from the panel, where we took the discussion and made art out of it so that it can be a way for public to understand what our discussions are about, where they can get help, and how the arts can have impact. So I'm going to mute now, and I'll be back at the end of the panel discussion.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Danny. I'm going to be leading the panel on anxiety and worries with Dr. Janina, Scarlett, and Jalen Bowie. Okay, so we're sharing the presentation now. As we settle into this space, I just want to acknowledge that since we're going to be talking about anxiety and worries, maybe some of us are feeling some of that anxiety or some of that unease coming into a new space, being in here with people that you might not know. So I want to lead a little activity of breath work for us to do before we begin. This is from the ancient Indian practice of breath work known as Samavriti. And the essence is to equalize the length of your inhale and exhale to calm down your nervous system. So let's try it together. I'll count it down beginning with 3 seconds. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 3, 2, 1. Now let's bump it up to 4 seconds. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. And again, inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you for joining me on that exercise. So now we can start. Coping with Anxiety and Worries by Jalen Bowie, Daniela Cervantes, and Dr. Janina Scarlett, PhD.
What is anxiety? Anxiety is your body's natural response to stress. It is basically the feeling of apprehension or fear of the future. But although most people feel anxious from time to time, anxiety can actually interfere with the daily challenges in life. Generalized anxiety is when someone feels more anxious than the average person, as exhibited when they have extreme worries and many what if thoughts. Social anxiety is when a person has intense fears of being criticized, embarrassed, or humiliated in everyday situations. Phobia anxiety is when someone is scared of a very specific object or situation and goes through great lengths to avoid it. And anxiety can be present in PTSD, OCD, panic disorders, and other things. Some symptoms of anxiety are feeling nervous, feeling nervous, having a sense of impending doom, higher or increased heart rate, breathing heavily, sweating, trembling, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, and irrational fears such as enclosed spaces or heights or more.
Some examples of anxiety, and all of these characters are fictional except for the last point, which is my own story, can include social anxiety and other conditions that have anxiety as a symptom within them, such as PTSD, OCD, and the rest are just different forms of anxiety in itself. So first we have social anxiety. Let's say that Lena goes to a party and she's having fun with her friends, but out of nowhere, she's standing in the middle of the room and she starts getting all of these rushing thoughts like, I wonder what people are thinking about me. And I wonder if they're thinking bad things about how I look, or I wonder if I'm being weird. I bet nobody likes me. And these thoughts become overwhelming. Her heart starts to race and she just wants to get out of there, to the point where socializing and going to parties like this is no longer fun. This is an example of social anxiety because the anxiety arises from social situations. PTSD. Let's say that Cassie feels uncomfortable traveling in cars. Every time she gets into a car or a moving vehicle, she starts getting similar feelings to Lena, to where her heart starts to race. Maybe she gets intrusive thoughts or flashbacks because maybe in the case of PTSD, Cassie had a traumatic experience with a moving vehicle to where now she experiences symptoms of anxiety within her PTSD around moving vehicles, for example. OCD. David organizes his shoes in color order every night. So before David goes to sleep, he has to organize his shoes in color order. If not, he experiences feelings of nervousness and thoughts of impending doom. Like, what if something bad happens to my family members because I don't organize my shoes in this specific order every night? And again, anxiety is a symptom of OCD, to where David will feel nervous, and this anxiety will interfere with his everyday life alongside OCD, which is a condition in and of itself. And finally, we have generalized anxiety disorder. Let's say that Danny goes to dinner with their family and they're sitting at the hometown buffet, just eating their food, when out of nowhere, they look up at their family and they realize, oh my gosh, my parents look so much older than I remember. And I am so much older than I remember. And when did this happen? When did we get here? When did we get this old? I wonder how much faster time is going to keep moving as I sit here eating my food at this hometown buffet. So when I was 12 years old, this was something that happened to me. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, and I would just get intrusive thoughts of impending doom around like disease and time running out, and just a lot of anxiety, which is characterized by your heart racing, trembling. Sometimes it can be a panic disorder. And that was something that I experienced when I was younger. So Thankfully, anxiety doesn't have to be permanent, and there's a variety of different things that you can try individually and see what will help you. The first one is therapy. You can find a therapist at a website like psychologytoday.com, and you can filter by symptom, insurance, and other characteristics, because finding a good therapist match is super important to you being comfortable, right? Because having a therapist is sometimes a long-term relationship, but regardless of how long you see your therapist, it's going to be a very close and very intimate relationship. And you want to make sure that you feel comfortable with your therapist, that you trust them, and there's someone that maybe reflects whatever values you're looking for or whatever characteristics you're looking for, and someone that you're going to foster that kind of intimate relationship with. Medication is also an avenue that a person could take and take specific medication to help alleviate symptoms of anxiety. There's also personal practices such as mindfulness and breathing exercises, much like the breathing exercise that we practiced at the beginning of today's session. You can also reconnect with nature. I know that reconnecting with nature is a big one for me. Like the picture shown on the screen, just being in the space of nature and maybe practicing mindfulness and breathing exercises at the same time can be really grounding for you, especially with anxiety when your mind is free to wander to thoughts that make you feel like you're living years ahead into the future or years ahead into things that probably won't happen. Being grounded, especially in nature, is super, super helpful for me. Drama therapy is another thing that you can practice, especially for the artists in the room. Drama therapy can be helpful in maybe expressing your emotions or getting you comfortable speaking for large groups of people, especially for social anxiety. And whatever route you take to handling your symptoms, it's important for you to know that facing anxiety in small steps over time is the best way to go. It's not realistic for you to set goals to handle anxiety and get everything under control overnight. And it's important to be compassionate with yourself and patient with yourself and nurture long-term growth in small steps over time. And if you're ever in a crisis and need immediate help, the mental health crisis text hotline is 741-741. So if you're ever in immediate danger and you need someone to talk to, you can text this hotline. Again, it's 741-741. And it's as simple as just saying hello and you'll be contacted with a crisis contact. So that's it for our presentation. Thank you so much for your attention, and please welcome Dr. Janina Scarlett.
You're on mute.
I apologize. Thank you for that. Hi, everyone. Let's try that again. So I am Dr. Janina Scarlett, and I specialize in incorporating pop culture examples from superheroes to Harry Potter and Star Wars into therapy to help people understand how to cope with anxiety, depression, and PTSD. And what I've learned is that everyone has an origin story. Everyone from Batman to Superman to Wonder Woman has an origin story of their own. I imagine a number of you might remember Batman's origin story. In case you don't, when Batman was a small child, his name was Bruce Wayne, right? When Bruce Wayne was a small child, he witnessed the death of both of his parents. This horrifying and traumatic experience understandably affected him. And it was also the beginning of his origin story. Later, Bruce Wayne grows up to become Batman, the protector of Gotham City, to ensure that nobody else in his hometown loses a family member the way that he did. I don't know if you know this, but Spider-Man, in the comic books and in movies, struggles with social anxiety and some symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder too. And whether you've struggled with anxiety, whether you've experienced some kind of trauma or have gone through depression, that might be the very beginning of your origin story. But what we know about heroes is this. Every hero has an origin story, but that's just the beginning. It's the jumping off point. The rest of that hero's journey is up to them. Here's what we know. During our most difficult times, we tend to feel alone. And this is especially important when we're facing anxiety, depression, trauma, or another mental health struggle, at the very time that we might be in greatest need for compassion and support, might also be the time that we might be most likely to withdraw from other people. And that's something to pay attention to. Sometimes we might feel worse in social situations when we're around other people who seem to be smiling, who appear to be having a good time. We might assume that they're all happy and we're the only ones who are feeling anxious or depressed. And this disconnection between how we feel on the inside and how we perceive other people to feel on the outside might sometimes create the feeling of shame. We might think, I'm very different from everyone else. What's wrong with me? Why do I feel this way? And actually, let's differentiate between shame and guilt for a second. So shame is an emotion that says, I am bad, I am worthless, I'm not good enough. Guilt says, I did something bad. The emotion of guilt can actually be helpful in some situations because it can teach us what to do and what not to do. For example, guilt can teach us not to say things we don't mean in the middle of an argument. Shame, on the other hand, tends to be maladaptive. It tends to prevent us from getting support when we need it most. It feeds us lies, such as nobody cares about me, or I'm not worthy of love and belonging. And shame researcher Brene Brown actually says we deny our loneliness. We feel shame around being lonely, even when it's caused by grief, loss, and heartbreak. So think about it. Right at the time that we're in greatest need for support might also be the time that we might kick ourselves and put ourselves down for suffering. And she says, Brene Brown says, the less we talk about it, the more we feel it. So what that means is that perhaps by sharing our story, we might be helping other people to understand that they're not alone. We might be able to get the support that we need, but we might also be encouraging other people to talk about their own experiences. What we know is that social connection, connecting to other people, talking about what we're going through, can create a sense of common humanity. The understanding that we're not alone. It can destigmatize the experience that we're having. It can take the shame out of it. It can promote hope and meaning making. And I love this quote from psychologist Kristen Neff, who says, it's not that misery loves company. It's that company is the antidote for misery. Which means that when we reach out for help, or when we offer help, when we share our story, or encourage other people to share their own story, we're creating meaningful connection that can be healing for everyone. You see, every time we go through something challenging, it allows us a path for meaning making. And when we make meaning of what we're going through, for example, if you're struggling with anxiety, maybe that's your call to action, to help other people who are struggling with anxiety too. When we make meaning of what we're going through, that can be the biggest predictor of recovery, of reduced symptoms, of improvement in our mental and even physical health. So I think of it as kind of like a hero's journey. We don't always choose the call that we get, but we can choose how we answer it. I love this quote by fantasy author Neil Gaiman. He says, fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. Everything we see on the screen, in movies, in television shows, in comic books, and in different kinds of video games, teach us one thing. You can be the hero of your own journey. Sure, superpowers can help, but they're not necessary for you to be a superhero in real life. All you need is determination and passion. So I'd like to invite you to participate in a little exercise. This is a completely optional written exercise. You do not have to participate in any of it, and it will be completely private, which means that if you choose to participate, you do not have to share what you write down. So if you choose to participate, the exercise will be in 3 parts. You can use either pen and paper, or you can use your electronic device like your computer or your phone, for example. So if you're choosing to participate, for the first part of this exercise, I'm going to ask you to think about your origin story. It could be your struggle with anxiety that maybe came out of nowhere, or maybe something you've experienced your whole life. Maybe it was a time you were rejected, maybe you were bullied in school, maybe you were made to feel that you're not enough. So if you have an origin story that you can think of, if you're willing, please write down maybe 1 or 2 sentences about it. You don't have to go into detail, just 1 or 2 sentences is enough. Okay, so for the second part, I'm going to ask you to think about a personal hero. This could be a real life hero, maybe a grandparent, a teacher, even if they're no longer alive. Could be a historical figure, could be a celebrity, even if you've never met them. It could even be a fictional character like Black Panther, Wonder Woman, or Yoda. Somebody who's a figure of compassion or wisdom. See if you can maybe think of such a hero for yourself and maybe write down who that might be. And if you can't think of anyone, maybe we can think of Batman as a default. All right, and once you have your hero, I'm going to ask you to imagine that you and your hero have a few minutes alone to talk. Your hero already knows your origin story. You don't even have to explain anything. Your hero completely understands you, sees you, hears you, and believes you. Your hero knows what you've been through and what you're hoping for, what you need. And your hero has the most encouraging, supportive, and kind words for you. So I'm going to ask you to think about what your hero might say to you and see if you'd be willing to write down a few sentences of what your hero might want to remind you of. Maybe your hero would remind you that you've already been through something really challenging. Maybe your hero would remind you that you're not alone in this experience. And maybe your hero would remind you that who you are, what you do, your voice, that it matters, that it makes a difference in other people's lives. Something that you really need to hear. And so, at any point in your life, I encourage you to think about a personal hero, which might be the same one that you thought of today or maybe a different one, and see if you can hear that hero's message. I want to tell you about a client that I was working with for whom we tried this very exercise. So we'll call her Lily, but that was not her real name. Lily was a teenage girl. She was 15. She was struggling with severe anxiety, social anxiety, and depression. she was bullied, and she had a really hard time talking about her symptoms, talking to other people. She didn't think she had any friends or that anyone liked her. She even engaged in self-harm because she was struggling so much. When I started working with Lily, she had a really hard time talking about what she was going through. She would often hide behind her father, asking him to speak for her. And the one thing she wanted to talk about at all times was her favorite TV show, Veronica Mars. If you have not seen this TV show, I highly recommend it. It's currently on Hulu and actually takes place in San Diego for any of you that live in San Diego. And the TV show is about a teenage girl, Veronica Mars, who is a high school student by day and a kind of a teen detective by night. And before the show even starts, Veronica goes through just about every horrific thing you can imagine. She had been sexually assaulted and bullied. Her parents went through a divorce. One of her parents is addicted to substances. And Veronica is left alone to pick up the pieces of all the traumatic things that she had been through. And so when I started talking to Lily about Veronica Mars, I asked her what is it that she liked about this character. And she said that she liked that she could identify with her. She felt that Veronica had been through a lot of really painful experiences, just like Lily had. And then I mentioned that Veronica had also learned certain skills. She learned to become a school detective, essentially, to help solve different kinds of crimes, to help students in her school and people in her city. And so I asked her, well, maybe we can find something that you know a lot about. So what do you know? What do you have? And I'll be honest with you, in my entire career, this is the moment that I will never ever forget. Because she looked at me with these big eyes full of tears and she said, I have depression. She struggled with depression that came from the overwhelming amount of anxiety that she was going through. Because of her anxiety, she was so alienated that she felt depressed. One symptom was feeding the other. So I said, is anyone else in your school struggling with anxiety or depression? And she said, maybe a couple of people. So I said, what would Veronica do? She thought about it and she said, you know, Veronica wouldn't keep silent. Maybe she'd make a speech. So this is the girl that was hiding behind her father anytime I would ask her a question about her symptoms. And so I said, is this what you want to do? And she said yes. And so we spent 2 weeks rehearsing and role playing and practicing. And then she did the most courageous thing that you can imagine. She stood up in front of her class and she gave a 5-minute talk on her symptoms. She talked about her experiences with anxiety, her feelings of depression, her having been bullied, her feeling alone, and her history of self-harm. And she said that she'd been feeling so alone, but she wanted to tell other people about her experiences in case they were feeling alone too. And if anyone wanted to talk about what they were going through, they could talk to her. And if anyone had questions about therapy or how to find a therapist, they could talk to her too. That was it. It was a 5-minute talk, but it was a 5-minute speech that forever changed the conversation about mental health in her school. It allowed students to talk about what they're going through. The second she was done talking, all her classmates ran over to her and everyone was crying and hugging her and sharing their stories. By the end of the week, the word got out all over the school and people were stopping her in the hallways and messaging her and thanking her because she disclosed what everybody else was feeling. A few months later, she started her school's peer support mental health club, where students could meet and talk about what they were going through and support one another. And by that 5-minute speech, Lily had become her very own version of a superhero in real life. And so what I wanted to tell you is this. If you ever wanted to have any kind of magical powers or abilities, maybe you've even imagined what you might do. Maybe you imagined the kind of people that you would want to help. But the truth is this. You already have all the magical abilities that you need. That sense of anxiety gives you wisdom. Your experiences with depression give you knowledge. And you are the chosen one of this hero's journey. It has to be you. You are the one that makes a difference. And you might not even know this, but you've probably already saved a life. You've probably already made a difference in more people's lives than you can possibly know, but nobody might think to tell you this. So I just wanted to let you know. You make a difference. You matter. So please keep superheroing and don't forget your cape. Thank you. And there were a couple of questions here regarding the crisis text number 741-741. You can text home to this number at any time. It's completely free in the US and Canada. Thank you, Sylvia, for texting that. You cannot call. It is only a texting number. But you can text at any time. It doesn't even only have to be for emergencies. So if you're having a panic attack, if you're feeling depressed and you don't know who to talk to, you can also text that number, and you will have somebody to talk to as well.
Wow, that was a wonderful, really powerful presentation. I just commend all of you. I'm moved. And what you came up with and what you are talking about, I have seen already, and I really thank you. On just over the last couple of months, doing all the video of people contributing to what goes on the post. They're 8-foot posts. You can see them behind me. They're artworks that are visual conversations, as Auntie Faye Love likes to say, about the topics that you have, honoring our artists, like our lead artist on this day's post, Lyndon Ross, and also including that text number, Janina, and Daniela gave us the Psychology Today and some quotes in her art. And Alex has a song on one of the posts and one of his artwork. So, and Jordan, I mean, everyone has really come together. So I would say on these 4 posts represent maybe 60 people at this point. So I'm going to show a short 4-minute video on the making of the post, since we're on virtual meeting here. I think it's easier for you to see the art than since we can't show it to you in person. But hopefully, one of the things I'd like to say is if you have a place once COVID is gone and over and we're back to meeting in person, if you know a public place where the posts would have an opportunity to reach more people, let me know. You can put it in the chat, or you can always contact us at compassionatearts.net or Compassionate San Diego or Compassionate California. We have the Charter for Compassion as a partner too, and the Post for Peace and Justice. So there's a lot of ways to contact us, and we're asking people to let us know how they want to be involved. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we did do the test on this. Okay, technical problems. I'm going to have to do it again. Oh.
All the people are like trying to help, right? And if you look really closely in our eyes, it says lost and fear, and those two things are kind of like, and as well as anxiety, obviously, is blinding her from seeing that people are actually trying to help.
All right, I apologize. Can you all hear it? Can you hear? Everybody hear it?
All the people are like trying to help, right? And if you look really closely in her eyes, it says lost and fear, and those two things are kind of like, and as well as anxiety, obviously, is blinding her from seeing that people are actually trying to help.
All right. Anxiety by Jalen Bowie, Daniela Cervantes, and Janina Scarlett. What is anxiety? Anxiety is your body's natural response to stress. It is the feeling of fear or apprehension about the future. Although most people feel anxious from time to time, anxiety can actually interfere with daily challenges in life when it's on a greater scale.
And when that symptom becomes overwhelming and has similar effects, such as racing heartbeat, trembling, intrusive thoughts, and just intrusion and disruption of everyday activities, that's when it can become an anxiety disorder. And I started thinking about how fast time is going and how before I know it, I will maybe lose my family members to old age, or I will get some weird or like life-threatening disease.
For this post, we kind of want to spread awareness of like anxiety in general, and I suffer from anxiety. I'm diagnosed with it, and like it's so hard. It's like an everyday struggle, and a lot of people think they're alone. And since we don't really talk about it as much as we should, and people think anxiety is just being worried, it's a lot more than that, where you can be stuck in your own head, and you kind of don't really like think about, you're kind of like stuck in your own head, and you really do think you're alone. And that's kind of what we represented in this picture, because there's like people reaching out and she's not realizing. And we kind of just want to like bring awareness and show that you're not alone, and so many people actually do struggle with this but don't realize it. And it's an everyday struggle. Of course, people have like different like how bad it is.
London grew up with art. I think it might be what helped her understand that it's the moments that matter. And that's something that our families need to understand. If you can just get the kids through different moments to understand that this will pass, that anxiety and fear can be mitigated by reaching out to family and friends.
I think mental health is very important and definitely not something to be looked over, especially right now because there's so many like things going on in the world that kind of sucks. And I think if you're struggling with your mental health, you always need to remember that there is at least two people who love and care about you, and you definitely should talk about your feelings because it's not good to bottle them up. And if you can't talk to them about with someone, then you might want to write it down in a journal or just on a piece of paper. And sometimes what I like to do is just like to burn it after. So you can also do that if you want.
Thank you, Maria, for that beautiful music, her beautiful flute. And thank you, London, for sharing your story. Of course, it's emotional for me because I'm your grandmother, but would you like to say a few things about the experience of working on the post? Because I think your art really added a lot in your story too.
Yeah, working on the post was definitely a new thing for me, but I have been drawing for consistently for at least 3 years. And I never done such a huge project, and I've never been part of something so important as this, and actually spreading awareness of a topic that I'm interested in, you know. And it was a really fun experience. And I mean, just talking with everyone, I mean, even in this meeting, it was really fun, and like figuring out all the details and getting ideas and like seeing it kind of form in front of you was just, it's awesome. It's really cool seeing that. So, and
That's
it
so
kind of helps.
I love it. I love your background too. It makes me feel like you're in the space.
Thank you.
So this is the time we've allotted to hear from our youth ambassadors about their experience of either the issue that we were talking about, the anxiety and worries, or about how art has made an impact. And I know, Daniela, maybe you want to go first because your art is on the post, and I've known you for a long time as an artist and a performer. Would you like to say a few things here?
Yeah, yeah, the poster just meant to encapsulate everything that we've talked about today. So we do have a bunch of different images that represent what it's like to go through anxiety and some tips to help you overcome. Would you like me to speak more about my personal experience with anxiety, or more about like art and anxiety?
I think you mentioned that you're a performance artist, and I know Faye Love is also a performance artist. And maybe you know, some people don't feel like Lennon is drawing all the time. It does take a lot of practice to be really good at drawing, right? So maybe you have tips on other kinds, like Alessandra was on, and she is an expressive art therapist, and she uses body, you know, yoga and dance and those kinds of things. And I know on our post we put exercise. So maybe, and you also go into the wilderness. So whatever you feel you think, you know, might be something that people hadn't thought about that might help, or how it might help.
Yeah, that's exactly how it helps me, the embodied aspect of it. Just because being someone who experiences anxiety, by its nature, anxiety can make me feel like I'm not living in my body, or like I'm not living in the present moment. I'm living 20 years in the future, or I'm living as a 7-year-old who, I don't know, yeah, was just experiencing anxiety for the first time. So embodied practices help me to sit into my body, to become aware of my body, and to really sit in the present moment. And that's something that acting does for me. When I'm performing, I have no choice but to be in the present moment. And I get to really feel what it's like in my skin. And I have to be very aware of the facial expressions that I'm making, and the body movements and the voice and all of that. But it's also just very fun. I love to perform and to pretend. And I think there's some aspect of that, of like getting away from my life and pretending to be someone else. But also just a genuine curiosity for other people and how other people live and how they think and how they behave. And acting is a huge part of that, is to really understand a person's way of life and what motivates them, what's their motivation, whether it's the larger role of a character or just what motivates them to speak a certain line or to do a certain thing or to move in a certain way. And that's what's really fun for me as a performer. But I also practice photography, nature photography, which kind of ties into me going into the wilderness. And that also requires a lot of like body stillness to like get a really good shot. You have to sometimes stay really still to focus the camera, and to like, you have to move quickly to capture things. Quickly, especially when I was working at the newspaper at my college, the Daily Californian. Sometimes I would shoot football games, and I'm not a sports person, so I don't regularly watch football. I don't really know how football works, but I was thrown onto the field and I was like told to cover the game, and I'm like, okay, I have to follow the ball, and they move so quickly. So that also kind of helped me. It's kind of like a meditative state when you're really into practicing your craft and you're just like in the moment and you're into following the ball or you're into being a character. You're just in your body and you're in the present moment.
Thank you. That was really well put. Felicia, maybe you want to add to that, and Janina, because of your what you were talking about, the role playing and pretending maybe as a hero, maybe you have some more comments on that. Felicia, you want to talk about performance and how you've used it to?
Yes, actually, I've created a one-woman show at times to explore my own hero's journey, and we talk about creation myths. So I'm just looking at where I started, how I had to overcome. One of my projects was called From the Streets to the Stage, Cirque de Vie. And so it basically coming from the inner city, I felt like it paralleled the circus life. Just it was just a circus, a lot of characters, a lot of magic happening, and we just had to overcome what this perspective was. You could be creative if we look at how the Wizard of Oz, you put in this circle, you put in this situation in the middle of a storm, and you're trying to find that center and get back home. So that's kind of like what I use for the archetype for that one woman show, is trying to find that center and getting back. So what art, like Danny said, is that it does put you in the moment, it puts you in the flow. We just saw the movie Soul. So many people saw that movie Soul, and it was about getting in the flow, and really the purpose is just enjoying life. The moment was when you can look at the leaves again and see the beauty in the leaves falling. That's the moment of living. That is what living is. Not these other things that we put outside of us, not those things that cause us anxiety, like what I gotta do. It's not what I gotta do, it's who am I and how can I be present. So as an artist, we take that one moment in time and extend it sometimes so that we're fully present in that moment, like what you've done with the art. And now we extended these moments, the messages that you put on the post. And now when you're looking at that, it actually is a staple to how we could actually be present in the time and enjoy where we are. So I thank you. I'm loving everything that I'm seeing. All you beautiful artists and the minds that are coming out. So excited because I understand the hero's journey, and I'm seeing all my heroes right here in front of me, all these artists and all these youth. So I'm loving it. Thank you, Dr. Janina. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah, so Dr. Janina, did you want to say something? And then after that, if Jalen would talk about maybe playing the piano, because I'm sure that he probably finds that as a peaceful experience too. Music is really, and Marisa has talked about how music makes her feel.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm absolutely just brought to tears by every single one of you and your presentation and your willingness to share just these most beautiful parts of you, the creative parts of you. I think they're the most important pieces of who we are. And I think that for many of us, we're raised to think that we have to hide our feelings. We have to put on some kind of a mask, right? The I am fine mask. We have to suppress and hide our emotions. But the truth is, our emotions are the most magical parts of who we are. And I think it's when we get in touch with creativity in whatever form, whether it's through painting, whether it's through acting, whether it's through playing a musical instrument, I think it gives us access to that inner part of ourselves, and that's when I think we really live. When we're able to express ourselves, I think we bring something to life, and I think that's why for so many people some form of creative expression is so empowering.
I'm trying to get Jalen. There you are. Jalen, did you want to talk? Can you come on screen, please?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes when I have anxiety, I like to usually play piano because it kind of channels all of everything that I'm thinking into one thing, and it helps me kind of, you know, a little, almost take my mind off it, and it's very relaxing for me. And especially when I can play songs that I truly love to play and songs that I listen to, it really makes me enjoy myself and honestly makes me happier as a person.
Yeah, I get that. I used to play the piano as a child, Jalen, and I used to make up my own songs. I could play by ear. I wish I could still do that. I think any art form, it's like what Janina was saying. I think one of the things in our practice, you were saying that it takes practice and perseverance. Basically, you can't give up. You have to keep going. And so sometimes I think we get discouraged and we give up too quickly and don't follow what we'd really like to be doing. And I know that when I played piano, Jalen, I used to just so enjoy being able to hear something and play it. And I wish I could still do that. I don't know if you can, but I think it's a great talent. And I hope I get to hear you sometime do that. Madison, I'm just wondering if you have something you want to share here in terms of like, how do you handle, Madison is the lead artist on the panel Understanding Autism tomorrow and at 1:30, and she's taught me a lot, not just in what mental health and how we can help youth, but also in possibilities. So Madison, would you like to say something here?
Yeah, sure. Well, I kind of wanted to start this because in school, they only tell you about it freshman year of high school. So that's why I kind of want to bring up mental health to older people so they can help the younger youth and the younger generations with mental health and how to deal with it. So that's why I kind of want to help people more with this mental health fair too. That's pretty much it, what I want to say.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. And I encourage all of you to attend the other panels. They're all beautiful, wonderful, and deep. I would like to hear from all of the youth ambassadors. Could you all wave your hands if you're on this call? And then we'll open it up to the rest of the people that are wanting to speak. So if you want to speak and we can't see you, can you put something in the chat that you want to say something? So Madison, can you help me figure out who, Alex, did you want to say something because you are an artist and a songwriter? Well, songwriter is an artist, right? And you're on the post and you have been a very big part of Compassionate Arts. Alex has a podcast that he does with Annie Faye every Thursday for youth. When Black and Brown Go Green, it's a campaign for Compassionate Arts. And if you want to be invited to that or to sit on that, please just put that in the chat also. And we will, does that sound good, Annie Faye? And Alex, you want to say something about your art, your music?
I mean, yeah, music, art, I mean, yeah, just kind of unlocking that creative side of the brain, I guess you could say. For me, like whether it's like I'm anxious or depressed, like it's not always the easiest thing to motivate myself to get to that creative space. But whenever I do and I find that energy, it always helps me because, like, I'm just thinking on how I make these words come together and sound right and form a story, or I'm just putting, you know, like pen to paper or a brush to canvas. And it sort of seems like a lot of times everything that was kind of existing around me, that like, negative ruminations or thoughts or stressors in the outside world or in my personal life, it just sort of fades for a bit. And for me, just different forms of art are like just that form of escapism for me that just helps me make it through tough days and allows me to express myself in a better way than just I could perhaps do just having a one-on-one conversation with someone. And I mean, I also do take therapy and stuff like that seriously. But for me, just being able to find hobbies that I love and really enjoy and that make me think in a different way instead of just maybe a purely logical way, um, brings me a lot of joy and comfort.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. We really value you. Who hasn't talked? Jordan and Janina, do you want to talk? Jordan, Jelena?
I can share a little bit. I think it's really important to recognize that anxiety probably affects more people than you think. And so it's always nice to just treat everyone with compassion and respect because you never know what someone's going through. And it's really important just to acknowledge the humanity that everyone has and just, see them as a person. And so just whenever you go through your life, just always, try to show compassion and kindness because most people are probably affected by anxiety.
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you for your leadership. Jordan and Madison are taking over the leadership on the Youth Council. And if you want to join the Youth Council and you're between the ages of 13 to 26, please put that in the chat and hopefully Jordan will contact you or Madison and we'll follow up on that. Or you can, if you want to do it later, just go to Compassionate Arts or Compassionate San Diego and contact us. Jolena, are you there? Did you want to say something? I'm trying to get all the ambassadors that are on this call first, and then we'll open it up to the rest of the people that want to talk.
Yeah, pretty much what everyone said. I think it's really important to keep an open mind because you really don't know what other people are going through. And if you feel like yourself that you're alone, just like remember that there's a lot of other people out there for you, and there's a lot of resources online that you can reach out to as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Jolena, because sometimes when I get stressed or I can't sleep, I found all these wonderful meditative videos on YouTube. It's just lovely, and it really has helped me. And so that's a resource it's a new technology resource, right? So we can do that. Marisa, are you there still? Marisa, I don't see her. She was on earlier. Laura, is Marisa there? I see Laura. I don't see Marisa. Faye, do you see Marisa? Felicia? Okay.
I don't see her right now. She must have stepped out.
Okay, all right. So are there any other youth ambassadors that are on this call that haven't spoken? Are there any people that would like to speak? Sylvia, Jane, Sharon?
Is Alexia Woods on the panel?
Yeah,
Alexia.
Is Alexia here? That's a good one, Rose. Alexia, are you here? I don't see her either.
If there's someone that want to speak, just put a comment in the chat so that we can see your name and then we'll call on you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Felicia, because I can't see everybody. I only see about 15 people, it looks like. There's Marisa. Do you want to say anything, Marisa?
Sorry, my computer took me off for some reason.
So we're just talking about the experience. I know that you're really enjoying art and how that makes you feel. Could you want to talk about that a little bit?
I express myself by painting art, and it helps me express how I'm feeling a lot of the time.
Yes, and so interestingly, Marisa and Felicia are artists that started on the, well, Felicia is the lead artist on, or Faylove, on the post that's this afternoon, discussion on overcoming depression and worries, or no, loneliness. And anyway, so Marisa did color, all abstract colors all over the post. And then Faye took those colors and incorporated it into her drawings, which you'll see in the video. So good job on that. Did we figure out if Alexia was here? I don't see. Somebody, can one of the youth ambassadors look at the chat? I can't see.
Alexia's not here. You can search the participants, and Alexia is not here.
Okay,
So
thank you.
we just
Thank you
have
for,
to
thank you for
continue.
that.
Thank you.
Okay. We do have some other counselors that are on our other panels. Reverend Carolyn is on the diversity panel, and she's speaking tomorrow. Reverend Carolyn, you've been involved in our art projects for 5 years, as well as Dr. Marissa Pay. And I'm wondering if you would like to say something about the power of the art that you've seen. Just the process as much as important as the actual art. To hear that, because when you get people together to talk about something through the arts, it's less intimidating than just looking at them and asking them, well, how do you feel? Or how could you do that? You know?
Thank you so much, Kira and Faye Love. You all did a phenomenal job today. I love the superheroes and all of the conversations. What I wanted to share is in participating with the art projects, many of us don't consider ourselves artists. We have other skills that come forth. But this is a program, especially creating the peace polls. It doesn't matter if you think you're an artist, there's an artist within you that will show up. And when you're in an environment that encourages you to use your creativity, you never know what's going to happen. What I applaud the young people for is that they know who they are, they know how they can express themselves. But I encourage everyone to tap someone else and let them know they're welcome, whether or not they are called an artist or not. And sometimes in school, well, I went to school quite a few years ago, but sometimes in school, teachers who are trying to help you with art will tell you you're not all that good, or they'll point out what you can't do versus what you can do. So I know this is a program that we approach with compassion and love. So I invite everyone to participate.
Thank you, Reverend Carolyn. We look forward to your panel tomorrow morning at 11:30. Chris Lyric, I notice you're on, and Chris is one of our youth ambassadors and a musician and performer. Chris, could you want to say a few minutes here on the art impact? Chris?
I'm here. I'm going to refrain if you don't mind.
Okay, that's fine. Just wanted to give you an opportunity. Chris is an amazing musician and writes songs and has been very involved in compassionate arts in Pasadena. Felicia, do you see anyone else that might want to talk? I don't see.
Ray and Royalty want to say anything about anxiety and depression? Are you guys wanted to come on and talk about anything? Lorraine and Royalty? And I know we just said something. Yes, hi.
Hi. So Royalty is not with me at this moment, but it has been a great joy raising this child who's very in tune with his emotions and the energies around him, and seeing the process of him being able to get comfortable with talking about the things that he experiences. Usually if you just put a pencil and a paper in front of him, then you can talk to him. and you can get him to talk to you. So I've been able to relate a lot to everyone sharing about getting present. Creative space, the left side of the brain usage is the most helpful way to allow for one to process. And being a mom, it has been a great learning experience of how do I create this psychological safety for my child to be able to express and not feel judged or blamed or guilt or shame, but just create that safe space for him to express what he's feeling. And I remember the very first time he was probably about 2 and he was like, my heart is broken. And I was like, I need you to show me that. And he drew pictures for me. It was amazing.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I got introduced to Royalty the other day on a Zoom with Auntie Faye, and it was really lovely to hear his ideas. Thank you for sharing that. And Patricia Frischer is the founder for the San Diego Visual Arts Network and has very, very deep knowledge of how the arts can impact. And Marjorie, actually, you might want to say something too. So would you like to say something here, Patricia?
Yes, I really want to remind people, especially the youth, that we make art to express ourselves, but what we're finding is that art has a way to affect the entire community. So, you've heard the expression art for art's sake, which is marvelous and wonderful and essential and important. But the use of art in order to communicate with the society as a whole can be an extremely powerful tool. And so a lot of you that are now casting yourselves in the roles of heroes, remember that you can use this superpower of art to make a difference in your community. Thank you. And I've enjoyed this very much and am looking forward to all the other panel discussions. Keep up the good work.
And Marjorie, do you want to say something about poetry? Because she was talking about Lorraine was talking about her son writing, and I know that you've been doing some amazing poetry, short and just powerful.
Well, thank you. I find I write as reminders to myself, and a lot of times I don't want to take the time to draw, but I'll be out walking around and I'll take photos on my cell phone, and that'll be a starting point, a jumping off where my thoughts just start to flow, and you just let it write itself out and go back and edit later. And a lot of times you don't have to edit, and you do it for yourself and then share it with others if you feel moved. And I've always been really surprised the feedback that I get, because other people are feeling what we're feeling.
Yes, I know. I love your poetry. It's really strong. You know, one thing I was thinking, looking at the people that are still on this call, I wonder if family members like Jack or Rose, if you would like, or Katrina, if you would like to talk about how you've seen this project affect the children or the young adults in this project. Rose or Jack, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I can say something. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So one of the things I would say as far as using creativity or artistic impression is that I look at it as a sense of balance, and I see the brain as a muscle. And if you spend too much of your brain doing one thing, for example, doing math or using logic or reading, that it becomes imbalanced. And art in this case and creativity is an outlet for the balancing or rebalancing of your brain. And And so I see it as a wonderful way, not only for dealing with anxiety, but in general for dealing with creating balance in your life. And so when I, for myself, spend too much time working and using one part of the brain, then I actually will also play the piano and kind of rebalance. And I do it not out of a sense of anxiety or out of a sense of needing to create per se, but really feeling almost imbalanced, almost feeling like when I'm thinking that I almost am unable to complete thoughts without this outlet of playing the piano. So that's how I like to use it, and that's the observation I've made in terms of how we might utilize art in order to balance our way of thinking and balance the brain, just like we would balance our workouts. We can't just work on one set of muscles all the time. You have to work your whole body, and I see the brain as the same way. So I think this has been a great summary, and I completely agree with these ideas of using art as an outlet and using it as almost a therapy.
Thank you for sharing that. That balance is something that I know my partner Tide Richards has taught me a lot because I tend to work a lot. And so that exercise and music and walking and things like that are I mean, meditation, it's all, and especially right now, I just think, especially right now with all the things that are going on in our world, London has talked about this, and Madison too, often, about every week, when Madison and I were first talking about her paper, she said, like, every week youth her age feel like there is another crisis. It's the super volcano, it's the climate change, it's the flood, it's the fires, it's the politics, I know adults that have a lot of anxiety, and I think that learning balance is something that you learn. It's just like learning art. It's something you can't just sit down and do. I mean, you can sit down and do it. You can do anything creative just sitting down, but or standing up for that matter. But I think in terms of doing something where you're really satisfied, it takes some time. It takes some time. And Maria Costellas wants to say just a little bit about sound healing and music. She's been involved in that for quite a while. I've known her for 20 years. Do you want to say a few minutes? And then I'm going to just end with a few call to action things that if you want to get more involved with Compassionate Arts
Sure,
or
okay.
Compassionate San Diego.
Yeah. So right now, currently, the climate of our country, my heart is ached. And when that happens, I sometimes have more anxiety. So I can go to something bigger than myself, which is the arts, which is some energy that I feel, the creative spirit energy, the energy that is here, that is invisible. And that is what's in play when I do art or music. And it connects me to something that has a lot of wisdom, so that I'm not out of balance. I'm not listening to that part of my mind that feels the anxiety. So art is a connection, a deep, deep connection. I'm very glad that I have that since I was a very little girl, music. And also I've had the privilege of painting on some of the posts too, which has helped me a great deal. And it is about that connection, that special connection. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much. Emily in the chat brought up why we need art in all schools and education programs. And thank you for reminding me of that, Emily, because I was the director of arts and education in Monterey County. And that's how I know Danny. And she was one of my students and years ago, and she was a star in a lot of our productions. We did puppetry and we did art, and then they cut all the art out of the schools, and my job disappeared for a while. It's back now, thank God. But that's when I moved back to San Diego when that happened. And so the arts are super important. And so if you want to join Compassionate San Diego, please contact us on our Facebook or on our website, compassionatesandiego.org. If you want to join Compassionate Arts, Arts in Action, you just go to compassionatearts.net, and same thing, we have Facebook pages and we have Instagram and we have a website. So there are lots of ways to contact us, and we would love to hear from you. Even if you have ideas and you don't want to join, that's fine. And if you want to donate anything, several of you have donated to this project, and I sincerely thank you from the bottom of my heart. Ellie, I see her here, and Patricia and different people. Your support means so much. I was able to get posts, stands for the posts, because it does take some funding to do those kind of things. So even though we're donating hundreds of hours, funding always helps. So that is that's it for my comments. And any last, Rose, did you want to say any last thing?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. I want to echo Kira for the wonderful job that everybody is putting in. And thank you, all of you, for coming to participate today and giving us a lot of support and encouragement and inspiration. And those are my thanks to all of you, and thank also Spirit for guiding the whole meeting. But now I want to share a little bit about art and the balance. Our body is made of a physical, visible presence, the visible physical body. And then a second part is the emotions and the mind. And the third part is the spirit, also known as the soul. And we need to connect those three. And if we are imbalanced and we do all physical work, like brain work on scientific papers and so on, and we don't pay attention to expressing our emotion, then we will be imbalanced. We have to recognize our emotions too. And art will help us to bring those emotions forward. And art also will lift our spirit. And when we do such an activity, our spirit is being helped at the same time. Again, I want to thank you, everybody, from the bottom of my heart. This is, I hope that this is a help for many young people. Thank you.
So that concludes it. Oh, did you want to end with music? That's fine, Faye.
Living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, I like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. The silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move that we have each other, and for that we have each other. And we will rise, we will rise, we will rise. Oh, we'll rise. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I will rise 1,000 times again.